ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਰੇਡੀਓ USA ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਮਾਣਯੋਗ ਅਤੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰਤ ਸਰੋਤਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਸਹਿਤ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਮੈਂ ਰਾਜਕਨਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਖਾਸ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਵਕਤ ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ। ਸੋ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਟਰਾਈ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ, ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਇਲਾਕਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਰਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਈਏ, ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਕਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਆ, ਕੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਆ, ਕੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਉਹ ਚੱਕ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਸੇ ਸਿਲਸਿਲੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਅਸੈਂਬਲੀ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ 20 ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਉਸ ਤੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਸ਼ੌਨ ਕੁਮਾਗਾਈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਸੋ ਲੈਟਸ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਸ਼ੌਨ, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ। ਹਾਊ ਆਰ ਯੂ ਡੂਇੰਗ?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for having me. I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
So, Shawn, first of all, how's the campaign going? Last stretch of the campaign.
Yes, we have under 4 weeks to go, and the campaign is going very well. We are just really focusing on getting the word out to every single voter in this district. It's a big task, but our main focus right now is just talking to voters.
Okay, so Shawn, before we talk about other issues, can you tell our listeners, our viewers, your district, about your district? What areas does it include?
Yes, the 20th Assembly District was recently redrawn. The current incumbent is Dr. Bill Quirk, and the district changed just a little bit. It includes the cities of Union City, Hayward, and San Leandro. About half of Dublin, so West Dublin, a little bit of Pleasanton, west of the 680, and also includes all of the urban built unincorporated areas such as Castro Valley, San Lorenzo, Cherryland, Ashland, and Fairview. So 500,000 residents. It's quite a large district.
So big responsibility on your shoulders.
Absolutely.
So what are the issues right now of your district? What are the main issues which you're focusing on?
Well, top of mind for people right now is public safety. As a 21-year veteran of the United States Navy, I take public safety very seriously. As a matter of fact, I believe that as elected officials, that is our number one charge, is to make sure that we're keeping our communities safe. Mm-hmm. So I'm very proud to have the support of pretty much all of the statewide law enforcement organizations, the Peace Officer Research Association of California, the California Coalition of Law Enforcement Agencies, and just this week we also added on the Union City Police Officer Association as endorsers of my campaign. They know that as a veteran, I am going to take public safety seriously, as I have as a Dublin City Council member. As a council member, we have prioritized funding our public safety, including our fire and our police departments, to keep Dublin one of the safest cities in the state of California. That's what I want to do. We're seeing a rise in crime throughout the Bay Area. We're seeing a lot of not only property crimes, but also violent crimes. The gun violence is really getting out of control. What we recently saw with the Sikh family down in Merced. I mean, it's just getting out of hand. And we know that the Asian American community is disproportionately impacted by this type of violence. So we want to make sure that we're working closely in collaboration with our law enforcement to get them the tools they need to identify these type of targeted crimes, hate crimes, and get them the resources so they can investigate them and charge them.
So recently, FBI report came in about hate crimes, about Asian Islanders, Pacific, these communities. They say that there has been a recent spike in that. So if you get elected, how you want to deal with that?
Well, I think it's twofold. One thing is we want to make sure that our law enforcement has the resources they need to provide the training so that they can identify and investigate these types of crimes. It is, I think, a little bit labor intensive for them to investigate hate incidents or hate crimes. And we want to make sure that they have the knowledge and ability to identify those types of crimes. I think part of the issue is sometimes they need to understand how to investigate and ask the questions when something comes up. It may not always cross the threshold, which is a pretty high bar, into a hate crime, but
Mhm.
certainly there are hate incidents. But also, we should think about how our AAPI communities are disproportionately impacted by these kinds of crimes. So, one is getting the training they need. Two, I think we need to do a better job of collecting the data. And Stop AAPI Hate is a nonprofit organization that has started to collect this data. But our AAPI community is largely made up of first generation immigrants. We have a
Mhm.
lot of monolingual community members, and they
Yes.
need to have the resources to report these kind of crimes as they should when they happen. A lot of times there is a misunderstanding of how they can do that, and a lot of times they don't want to report the crimes, to law enforcement. So we need to create that awareness, and that's going to take some resources and concerted effort to make sure that our community is engaging with the law enforcement.
So right now, Sean, like almost every city, every county is short on law enforcement officers. So the population is growing, but the number of officers for this they're not growing. How will you make sure that that happens? And even when there are few cadets coming out of the academies, other counties, other cities are, I can say, poach them, or they see that there's a better prospect other way around. So how will you make sure that your police officer who you train, they stay there?
Yeah, I mean, the law enforcement agencies are suffering from the same labor shortage that we're
Mm.
seeing across the board. But you compound that with the fact that this is a very challenging job and has been put under a high level of scrutiny over the past couple of years. So
Hmm.
what I hear from the rank and file law enforcement officers is they're concerned that we're not going to get as high of a caliber of recruit, and that's going to cause that's going to have negative impacts to the
Mhm.
profession. They believe they are serving in an honorable profession. I agree. We want to make sure that we continue to protect that trust that the community has for law enforcement. So I think, from a state level, as an assembly member, one thing that I'm always going to be looking at is how do we affect policy that supports our law enforcement agencies? How do we
Yeah.
affect policy that gives them the proper respect and the tools that they need to do their job to fight crime? But also, how do we provide additional resources to take a little bit off of their plate? I was talking to a law enforcement officer the other day, and
Mhm.
he said, we're expected to be social workers, we're expected to be mental health care professionals, and that's just not what we're there for. That's not what we're trained to do. And I agree. So we should be getting more clinicians out on the streets. We should be getting more social workers to case manage homelessness, and to really start addressing some of the root causes of the crime, so that law enforcement can focus on the most egregious crimes, such as violent crimes that are being committed against our community.
Sean, recently we've seen a sharp increase in smash and grabs. Those kind of, you mentioned a
Hmm.
lot of violent crimes. Uh, does policies like $0 bail, and do you think that $900, if somebody shoplifts, they're not going to be committed for felony or anything? Do you think these kind of policies uh, uh, make it's an incentive for a criminal?
I do. Unfortunately, I think we need to at least start having the discussion about some type of Prop 47 reform. um, Prop 47 was put in place by the voters. So if we're going to make any changes there, it's going to have to be referred, perhaps from the legislature, to the voters for consideration. We did do a little bit of reforms here in California around Prop 47. For example, if people go and commit, serial crimes, that we aggregate that value so that they can be charged if the DA and judge decides at a felony level. But what law enforcement and the community is becoming frustrated by right now is that it seems that even though people are sometimes being arrested for committing these crimes and charged, that they're just right back out on the street the very
Yeah.
next day and doing the same thing, right? And we can't have a system that allows people to commit crimes with impunity and without any kind of consequences or accountability. Now, I don't want to see everyone start going to jail, right? I mean, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these reforms were put in place because our level of incarceration in California was simply too high. One, that costs a lot of money. And two, you really have to question whether or not that's actually reforming people in a meaningful way. So we can put these people and create some type of incentive for them to go into an anti-recidivism program. Because what we don't want is people to be caught in these cycles where they're continuously committing these crimes of, poverty, or that they're caught up with these organized criminals doing this kind of petty theft. So we need to find ways to divert them from the criminal justice system and give them another path to be successful and to stop committing these crimes. So I'm committed to going to Sacramento and doing this work on some type of Prop 47 reform.
Okay, that's good to know because earlier nobody wanted to talk about it, but we have seen a sharp increase, and yeah, something needs to be done about that. As you mentioned earlier, public safety is your number one concern and should be for everybody who gets elected. Coming next to next issues, everybody knows Bay Area is becoming unaffordable. People who lived here for many years, many decades, they could work minimum wage and live there earlier, but that's not the case anymore. How many jobs somebody have to do just to afford to live there is just unthinkable. How you want to make sure that this affordability comes back here in the Bay Area?
Yes, I think one of the primary issues is housing affordability in the Bay
Mm,
Area. So many people are being priced out of the Bay Area or have to work, like you said, multiple jobs, two, three jobs to be able to afford to live here. As a council member, when I ran back in 2018, I made housing affordability my mission. And
mhm,
while on council, I have entitled three affordable housing projects, one for seniors, one for adults who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, and another one that's going to have 70 permanent supportive units for previously unhoused individuals.
mm,
Because what we know is there's so many people who are being priced out, but also that are in danger of entering homelessness.
mm,
And what we're seeing on the streets now is just cruel. It's inhumane that we are leaving so many people to suffer on the streets. By any account, we have upwards of 160,000 people in California who are living on the streets right now.
yeah.
And that's why I was an early and staunch supporter of the governor's care courts proposal, which
Mm,
allows for us to, through a care court, a judge can work with a clinician and put together a care plan for an individual who is suffering from severe forms of mental illness, such as schizophrenia, or suffering from chronic substance use disorder. And we can put them on these care plans and get them the services and housing that they need to get them off of the streets, get them off, out of our public spaces, such as our parks and our transit, and get them on a path to self-sufficiency. Now, it's just a start. We're going to need to do a lot more if we're going to tackle this homelessness crisis. We need to really start funding the mental health care and the housing that we need to get people off of the street. I currently work as district director for Assemblymember Bauer Cahan, and we just passed a piece of legislation that was signed this year by the governor called AB 988. And this
mm,
creates steady revenue for the state to provide for mental health crisis response teams, for people who are in crisis. So this will create additional capacity, and we can start to finally tackle some of the most severe mental health crisis that we're seeing on the streets.
Yeah, so it's becoming a problem. It's a cycle, as you were telling. Affordability, you become homeless, and
Mhm.
homelessness. It has its own issues, and we are seeing a sharp increase in that as well. So being a veteran, how do you think that experience will help you as a politician?
Yeah, well, number one, I've been doing this for 2 decades, and I think my experience working within teams and managing teams to get results is, I will bring that experience to bear. Because if one thing I learned from the military is that service is a team sport. You have to work together with your colleagues. Sometimes you have different opinions about how you want to do things,
True.
but teamwork is how you get things done. And that's the kind of spirit that I will bring to Sacramento. And that's what I've done as a council member too. I think too often in politics these days, we're kind of just talking over each other, and we're not being serious about listening to different perspectives and taking that all in and making sure that we're making good policy that's going to do the most good for the most of people. So that's the kind of collaborative spirit that I will bring to this job. I think the other thing is that, it's a unique perspective as a veteran that there are so many people that are out in our communities that are serving, that are struggling. As a council member in a city where we have a Army Reserve Forces training area, we see a lot of service members come through. We have a lot of veterans that decide to settle in the area around here. And they need assistance too, right? We're seeing a lot of veterans who are suffering from PTSD or other ailments from serving, and we need to make sure we're taking care of them as well. Sometimes the federal government doesn't do the best job of that, and I think we can do a lot more work from the state level to support these veterans. But also our law enforcement, our firefighters, they are also confronted with PTSD from the hard work that they're doing. So really kind of, I think, studying how we can address PTSD, the high rates of suicide that we see in service jobs, and making sure that we're providing for those who have served us.
Yeah. So thank you for telling us about that. How will that help us? That area where you want to represent about 500,000 people. A lot of Punjabi Sikh families live there. They are entrepreneurs. They are small business owners. Their constant complaint about is that whenever there is a crime happening, police doesn't show up. So with surplus budget of California, how will you utilize that? So you are the people who's going to be managing that budget. How will you make sure that the cities become more safe with that? And how are the grievances of these small business owners you want to overcome?
Yeah, and I hear it too when I'm out talking to small business owners. They're frustrated. They're frustrated again that people can commit crimes with impunity, and it doesn't seem like there are the resources there to respond to that, investigate it, and charge those kind of crimes. And we have to protect our small businesses. As a council member throughout the pandemic, we listened closely to what the small businesses needed. We allocated $1 million for small business rent relief because they were telling us, everyone is getting some kind of benefit, but hey, we can't operate our store at full capacity and
True.
we're not getting any help, right? We got PPP that helps us pay for the employees, but if we can't be open, or if we have less business because of the health orders, then we cannot balance the books. So we spent $1 million in Dublin to assist our small businesses, because the last thing we wanted to see was all of our local restaurants and retailers to be shuttered throughout the pandemic because they were providing an essential service to our community. So those are the kind of common sense results and actions you can expect from me. The police budgets are largely covered by local governments, but what
True.
the state can do is bring more resources to bear and ensure that when we're thinking about policy, that it is not going to be an unfunded mandate for our police agencies that's going to make it more expensive for them to do their jobs. So I think, at the state level, what we have to do is we have to work closely with law enforcement to make sure that when we're crafting policy and we're making our budget allocations, we're doing it in a way that supports law enforcement in doing their job so that they can make every dollar count and they can go further. I'm a big fan of technology-enabled law enforcement solutions. We can have situational awareness cameras, automatic license plate readers, and these kind of technologies that can help police to be more efficient in fighting crime. And we will have to make sure that we protect people's rights and that we do it in a way that is smart and does not violate people's rights. But I think we can do both. I think we can leverage technology to make law enforcement more efficient while also protecting people's individual rights.
Bay Area is one of the most congested cities or areas. So public transit, these kind of things, those are big issues in there too. People have to travel, they have to sit in traffic for hours on the end. Are there any projects you want to bring up so that decongestion can happen?
Yes, I always tell people I'm embarrassed when I go to Asia or Europe and I come back to California, or even when I go to the East Coast and I come back here, and we just have woefully inadequate mass transit infrastructure here in
Mhm.
California. I'm a supporter of our state rail projects. We really need to do more to connect our rail infrastructure. I support the efforts to advance high-speed rail here in California, but here in the district, we're cut up by all these interstates and so many people in single occupancy vehicles. So
True.
we need to do more to ensure that they're driving zero emissions vehicles whenever is possible. And that
Mhm.
means we're going to have to, invest in infrastructure so that we can have more hydrogen fuel cell and more electric vehicles on the road. I'm also a big supporter of a project called Valley Link. Valley Link will connect the San Joaquin Valley into the East Dublin BART station so that people don't necessarily have to drive single occupancy vehicles to get into the Bay Area the BART system.
Mhm.
And that is going to be a 100% clean, green hydrogen transit option. So not only is this going to get people off of the road, it's going to be better for our air quality here
Yeah.
in the Bay Area. We have a lot of work to do, but I take an all of the above approach. We need cleaner passenger vehicles, we need better mass transit, we need better, more seamlessly connected bus systems,
Mhm.
and we need more rail.
Yeah. Um, well, high-speed rail. We've been talking about it for decades, so it's
Yeah.
not. It's a rail to nowhere. Will the Valley
Uh,
Link be like that?
well, Valley Link will be initially a project that connects from Tracy into the East Dublin BART station. That'll be the initial leg with the intent of bringing it out to Stockton. And the high-speed rail system will be coming up, that 99 corridor. So eventually we'll be able to connect in and people will be able to use Valley Link as kind of that last connection until high-speed rail comes all the way into the Bay Area. I know it's frustrating. We've been talking about this for a long time. We've invested a lot of money in high-speed
Yeah.
rail, and I would really like it to connect as soon as possible into our metropolitan areas so we can make use of it. But I think it would be amazing if we had high-speed rail that connected the San Francisco Bay Area to the Los Angeles metro area, and you could hop on a train and get down to Los Angeles in a couple hours. I mean, how cool would that be?
That
So
sounds like a plan, but I don't know when is that going to
who
happen. We've
knows?
been
Who
waiting
knows?
for a
But
long time now.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to keep us on that overall goal of really just connecting our metro areas and providing an additional transit option for people so we don't have to fly or drive.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. Listeners and viewers, we were talking to Shawn Kumagai. He is right now candidate for California Assembly District 20, Dublin, Union City, that area. So ballots are in. If you like his talk, if you think his issues align with you, you're welcome to vote for him or any other candidate. I can't endorse you like that, but obviously he's here to talk to you. He talked about his issues, how he want to solve those problems. So thank you, Sean. In the end, any other things you want to talk or you want to tell?
Well, I'm just that I enjoy having the support of the Sikh Indian community. I've already taken a visit to the Gurdwara in Fremont to visit with many of the community members. And as a council member, I have always worked closely with the Sikh community. We passed our first ever Sikh awareness and appreciation resolution in Dublin. That's the kind of legislator I will be. I will work closely with your community and make sure that we address the issues that are top of mind for Sikh Indians. You can visit my website at shawnkumagai.com to learn more. And please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I humbly ask for your vote by November 18th, by November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for the
Thank
time.
you.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ
Thank
ਅਕਾਲ।
you for your time.
ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਨ ਸ਼ਾਨ ਕਮਗਾਈ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ। ਅਸੈਂਬਲੀ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ 20 ਦੇ ਇਹ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਨੇ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਵੀ ਲੱਗਾ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਚਰਚਾ ਕਰੋ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਟਾਈਮ ਆ, ਇਹ ਮੌਕਾ ਆ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਦੌਰ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਣੀ ਖਾਸ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਮਾਪਤ ਆ। ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਸੁਣਦੇ ਰਹੋ, ਦੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਰੇਡੀਓ।